Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome each and every one of you to our weekly program entitled the Economic Forum, inviting our brother, the Honorable Professor Abbass Mohammed, an economist in the United States of America, to be the main speaker of this program. We are therefore inviting each and every one of you to be part of this program, which is very educative, and then know at least what is going on economically in your country, Africa, and the world at large. We started this program, this topic, entitled Reimagining Ghana's Future, Economic Future, the IMF, World Bank, and the Ghanaian citizens, progress, pen, and the path ahead. Being a Ghanaian, at least you should be interested with the economic situation of your country. Being with this program will enlighten you to know exactly what is going on in our country economically. And in the course of our program, we are going to give you the opportunity to call and be part of this program by asking questions or making your contribution. So therefore, we'll give you the line in order to call in the program to give us your view, or you can ask questions and you can make your remarks. Our brother is here to answer all your grievances pertaining this topic. Very, very educative topic. We started, this is the part 3 of the topic, which is very, very enlightening, very, very interesting. You were all witnesses last week. Our brother went into the depth of the economic situation of this country. And you can agree with me that all what he has said makes a lot of sense. So today we are with him again, and we invite each and every one of you, including our politicians, to be part of this educative program. The number to call when the time is due is 0240 528704. I repeat the number 0240 528704. I am your host, Sheikh Ridwan Abdalla. Without much ado, we invite our Honorable Professor Abbass Mohammed to commence the program. But before then, we extend to each and every one of you the greetings of peace, and we are saying it in the Arabic dialect. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, which only means in English, peace and the blessings of God Almighty be upon each and every one of you. So without much ado, we invite our Honorable Professor to take over. Bismillah, sir.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Once again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Economic Forum. As always, we gather here to not just talk about another economic topic, but a moment of reckoning, a bold confrontation with 68 years of economic betrayal disguised as help. For 6 decades, the IMF and the World Bank has prescribed the same poison, which summarizes into austerity, deregulation, and the systematic dismantling of Ghana's economic sovereignty. And for 6 decades, we've swallowed it, only to wake up poorer, weaker, and deeper in debt. But tonight, I want us to begin thinking about the statement that enough is enough. From the ashes of Structural Adjustment Program, SAPs, to the shock therapy of today's IMF bailouts, Ghana has paid dearly for rescues that only rescue the foreign creditors. But across our border, Burkina Faso is rewriting the rules, rejecting the colonial franc, taking control of its gold, and daring to say no to the Western economic blackmail. Why can't Ghana? Tonight, I want us to expose the scars of IMF policies, the murdered farms, the strangled industries, the electricity tariffs, bleeding the families dry, but we also will unveil a radical new path. A Ghana that backs its currency with gold, mobilizes its diaspora billions, and builds an economy of our own with our own team. We must not beg again. No more begging. No more chains. The revolution must start now. One, the painful legacy, how the IMF bank policies broke Ghana. Number one is the war on Ghana's farmers in 1980 to present. The policy that mandated removal of agricultural subsidies under structural adjustment programs. What did it do? It collapsed the local fertilizer and the seed support, which translated to our maize yields dropping to 30% in 5 years. It brought a surge in food import, where Ghana stands right now. Ghana imports now spends about 2 billion yearly imported rice and poultry. And if you recall what was in the news this week, there was this argument about what the policies of the ministry in the past administration was when it says it's going to revive agriculture only to import food, rice from China. So that's the Ghana we have right now. The things that we used to grow are all imported. Cocoa farmers' share of the gold price has dropped from 1960 at the point of independence, it was 60%, now to only 16% today. So that means when the farmers harvest the cocoa, they only take home 16% of the price for which the cocoa was sold. So all that translated into a nation that once fed itself is now begging for food while foreign agribusiness profited. And in the same space as IMF and World Bank is forcing us to remove subsidies, guess what they're doing in their home countries? In the US, for example, they were subsidizing agriculture. And it remains one of the heavily subsidized industries in the United States. Meaning, if now you should embark on farming, the advantages you have and the bailouts you're going to have is beyond your imagination. I see it here in Texas. Farmers are the most protected people you can ever think of. Why are they telling us to remove our subsidies when they're doing it in their homes? So the next one is for subsidy removal, which translated into poverty as a policy between 1999. They did this three times, by the way. 1999, 2005, 2023, recently with the new deal that we have that we're working with right now. Their logic was to remove subsidies, which they claim was distorting markets. I don't know why we accepted that as a policy, but we should also recall that in a growing economy, subsidies are necessary to allow the infant industries to emerge before we open them to competition. But the first thing they did was to collapse our industries by removing subsidies. So the reality is that our transport cost has doubled within weeks of each removal. Inflation spikes. Example, 2023, our inflation was about 54% after the fuel price hikes. So what does it translate into? Human toll. Market women now pay about 60% of their profits to just commute. How is that something one can live on? When 60% of your profit is paid to fuel or commute. Then recently, another hike. IMF demanded that as part of their cost recovery for independent power suppliers, what did we do? They increased our tariffs in 2024 up to about 40%, which means factories are cutting shifts, households are choosing between light and food. So 60% of Ghana's power revenue goes to foreign IPPs, like the AXA Energy from Turkey, Send Power from Denmark. So why do IMF policies always protect foreign creditors while crashing Ghanaians? Is the question I asked. But guess what? There is a blueprint next door. In Burkina Faso, we've seen a rebellion that has provided us a blueprint. They are pursuing what I've always mentioned here, gold-backed currency, where Burkina now demands a central bank of their own to keep gold reserves to stabilize their economy. Resource nationalism. They are pursuing or stopping gold smuggling to Europe and looking at refining all their gold locally. They ditching the CFA franc, a bold move toward monetary sovereignty. What is the lesson here for Ghana? We have about 6 times more gold reserves than Burkina will ever have. But guess what? That will change if we don't do something about it. So why are we still begging IMF if we have all these gold reserves? We should be shameful of ourselves the fact that we have 6 times more gold, but 90% leaves Ghana raw. 90% of our gold is leaving Ghana raw. That's according to Bank of Ghana data. So when would we say enough is enough? You produce something for 68 years we've been pursuing gold mining. And up to this point, we can't even refine a single ounce of gold. That's really disappointing for any party that has been here. So what is the way forward beyond the IMF? Again, I bring back what I suggested. The gold back digital city revolution. Why this will work is that with 6.6 million ounce of gold that we produce, we could back 40% of city's value, which will halt our depreciation. The digital e-city will enable the diaspora investments without dollar dependence. We've seen the president in Russia and China already trading gold-backed currencies. I told you, it's coming. The diaspora weapon is the next thing that we should look into. 4.6 billion yearly. Remittances will fund consumption. All right, the phones cost. We can't do this. So we need a radical shift where we can issue a diaspora bonds to fund our railways, factories, etc. We can take example in Israel's 40 billion diaspora bonds. We can pursue certain project that's tied to diaspora. One diaspora, one village project is an example where global Ghanaians adopt hometowns for solar farms, schools. We got to be creative, innovative about how we can leverage the diaspora resources that we have. What relationship do we have from our embassies that is going to bring these people into the fold? I told you, I've spoken to people that live here, Ghanaians and Americans alike, and they're all looking for opportunities to invest back home, but we're not structured and we're not even thinking how we're going to incorporate them. Then the final one I'm going to suggest is energy independence. That will break the IPP that we have so far. Ghana pays about 500 million yearly for unused energy, take or pay contracts that we have. If we can renegotiate all these contracts, we invoke a forced measure of unfair terms. National solar grid, all right? Partner with BRICS nations for low interest green energy loans. Then finally, what I suggested earlier on, the National Economic Management Commission, which is going to be a wartime style team that will audit all our IMF World Bank debts for legitimacy, illegitimacy that we have, similar to what was done in Ecuador in 2008. We're not gonna be the first one to scrutinize IMF and World Bank relationship. It has happened in Ecuador. We could do same. Launch a Ghana first procurement policy. No more foreign contracts for contractors for our local projects. We have to localize all our projects to local contractors. No foreigners should be having anything to do with our resources if we are serious. Create a sovereign wealth fund that will model what Norway did with their oil. So there is examples we could tap everywhere we look at. So what the National Economic Management Commission is going to do is to help us own our own financial command. So we need an MCO, which is going to be the Ghana's brightest economists, business leaders, and innovators, which is going to be tasked with negotiating all our international deals, no more IMF terms, signed in secret, ensuring every loan and investment aligns with Ghana's long-term interests, building a sovereign wealth funds for future generations, inheriting wealth, not in debt. So what I'm proposing is not just another agency, but a wartime economic council for our nation's future, which is going to be our economic brain trust, our policy command center, and our shield against exploitation, ensuring that no foreign prescription overrides the Ghanaian interest. So I want you to imagine a Ghana where our central bank and finance ministry work in perfect harmony, where economic policies are designed in Accra, not in Washington.
Mhm.
Every decision prioritizes the Ghanaian jobs and not the Ghanaian families. So what that would do is to ensure that we can override any IMF or World Bank prescription which doesn't serve Ghana first. And we can manage physical monetary policy under one sovereign authority. So we can manage our own affairs from A to Z, where transparency will exist when all contracts are publicly audited and no more secret IMF terms. So immediately, I would suggest the gold-backed digital currency agricultural revolution.
Mhm.
What I'm saying is not just possible. It is absolutely necessary if we
That's
want to break free from this cycle of debt and desperation. The question isn't whether we can afford it. The real question is, can we afford not to continue without it? If we choose to not seek an alternative, trust me, the youth are waiting. And every indication and suggestions on social media and everywhere you look at indicates that the youth are ready to take over. So I encourage every Ghanaian listening tonight to think of this as our moment, that this is our fight, and that no IMF or World Bank can save us. What they're doing is not gonna build us. Only we can do that. Only us can build ourselves. So let us look at this as an opportunity to begin having a serious conversation about how we can move forward. Because the journey since independence has been marked by both pain and struggle in engagement with international financial institutions. So as we look ahead, the path to truly prosperous and independent future demands a bold reimagining of our economic strategies. We must learn from the past, look across the borders and embrace innovation, leverage our unique strengths and prioritize the welfare of every single Ghanaian. The power to shape our economic destiny lies within us. So, as we discuss on this platform, I encourage everyone to come in with an open mind and have a meaningful conversation about the way forward. So, I will pause here and, let us look at the questions and discussions as we begin this.
May God bless you, our honorable professor. I think if you can speak for some 10 more minutes, I think that will be okay for us to invite people outside to partake in the discussion because we have still more time. So if you can use
Mhm.
the next, at least the next 5 to 10 minutes, it will help us so that at least by 5:45 we can, or 5:50, we can start to ask questions that has been sent to us for you to address. So I wanted to speak for the next 5 to 7 minutes, or possibly by the next 10 minutes, speak some more because what you are saying is very, very important. So we want you to at least hammer a little bit on it so that it will sink in the minds of our people who wants to partake in the question. So please speak for the next 7 to 10 minutes. Ponder
All right.
over what earlier on. Ponder over it very well because it's important.
All right. So I want us to think about what is happening just across the border, because what I want our politicians who are listening to pay attention to is the signals that is all around us in social media, everywhere you turn. Is telling you that the youth are motivated, are excited about what is happening in Burkina Faso.
That's right.
And they're not scared to follow that route if we don't set up. So, like I said the last time, I feel like the current administration with Mohammed leadership has the mandate to rewrite our history, where we look at our constitution and try to evolve as a nation, even under the current democratic dispensation. I repeat, and I stand by my statement that we do not necessarily need to go the Burkina way or the Traore model, I call it, but it will become necessary if we don't do something right now. So now is our opportunity for the politicians and the leadership that we have right now to redo certain things. And that's why the approach shouldn't be a status quo. Signing an agreement with IMF as usual is not going to do it, because we've seen what a good will look like in Burkina when we don't work with these people. Burkina, for the first time, is able to feed itself. They have tomato manufacturing company. They are, for the first time, asking for their gold reserves back, because as it stands right now, they have zero gold reserves and they're going to move away from the CFA. So this is an independence in its true self. But yet, you look at us, you think we are independent, but we're not. We're still under the shackles of these institutions. Until we're bold enough to walk away and start looking at what is it that we can do differently, then it's always going to be the same thing over and over. And I'm saying this to mean that until we do something different, whatever this current administration does is only going to lead us nowhere. Why? Because there's not structures in place that will ensure continuity of anything this administration is doing should they lose power. And that's why we have to come up with a system that ensure that we have the right set of people, the brightest of the brightest in Ghana, to lead our cause forward, who are going to have a mandate that will cut across all political calendar and schedule. So these teams are going to ensure that we are moving one step at a time, building a nation whose political leadership does not necessarily affect how we grow, because every policy is well thought out. And that's the only way we can avoid going down the lane of what we see in Burkina. Because the youth can see what good looks like in Burkina. And trust me, if we don't fix ourselves in a short time, according to your survey, Mr. Ridwan, you share with us the data the last time in terms of the survey, and it indicates the desire of the youth to activate what Burkina Faso did, because they can see what good looks like.
That's
But
right.
if we choose not to go that path, what are the alternatives we're giving these youth? What are we telling them? Because all indication shows that our politics, the regular way, is not working. They fed up with the lies. They fed up with seeing people enriching themselves only to leave the common Ghanaian poor. They want to see something different. So if we're not getting the signals, I'm telling the politicians, set up. The signs are everywhere.
That's
Just
right.
check your phones, look at the social media, see how the temperature is. Take the temperature. on the scene in Africa. There's excitement within Africa and outside Africa. And this guy has been like a God sent person that everybody is looking at.
That's right.
So until Ghana does something different,
Mm.
we have to do something, revolutionary in terms of how we manage ourselves.
Mhm.
So until Ghana present itself like they serious, the youth would not hesitate to go the same way. All right. So that is just the situation we have. It's either we chose a path that's a little bit different, all right, or
That's right.
we will end up in the same way. So until we get that, it's not gonna, and that's what I'm calling for.
Mr. Prof, I want you to go a little bit back to the
Hmm.
60s.
Hmm.
So doing, I wanted to advise African government to pay attention, to listen to what Kwame Nkrumah said in the 1963 and
Hmm.
64, that the independence of Ghana is meaningless until it is linked up to the total liberation of the African continent. So that means Ghana should spearhead the Pan-Africanism. But unfortunately, this IMF and World Bank has completely shut the mouth of our leaders, so we are not independent. So here you mentioned about having a currency that is backed with gold. Right now, they have an agenda to fragment the African countries in order to make them weak, so that they will continue being the suppliers of our raw materials to their industries. Now I have this that I want you to listen to before you advise our head of state in Africa, seeing that this brother from Burkina Faso has come to open our eyes, and he has gotten massive support from Africa for the first time, that the health of an individual from one country has sparked demonstrations in all the African countries, including Europe. Sometimes they used to make an example of our leaders in order for anybody not to try to go to that same route. Otherwise, what our former leaders have faced in terms of assassination will befall them. Gaddafi tried to do this by creating a Central African Bank at a place called Strait, and then trying to, print an African currency that is going to be backed with gold, and at the same time, advising African countries to come to Libya for a loan free interest. And that is why the Western world teamed up and finally assassinated him. Now here comes Traore. This man has done something for us to emulate, considering the fact that Africa have gold reserves. For instance, if you compare our gold, Africa has gold mines, but our gold reserve is nowhere to be compared with the Western world. Particularly, look at the list. In Algeria, we have 174 tons of gold. In Libya, there is 147 tons. In Egypt, 127. South Africa, 125 tons. Ghana, 30.53 tons. Morocco, 21.12 tons. Nigeria, 21.37 tons. Mauritius, 12.42 tons. Tunisia, 8.84 tons. And Mozambique, 3.94 tons. Now, look at the countries in which they don't have gold mines, except the United States of America, which has 8,133.46 tons. Now, look at Germany, 3,351.53 tons. Italy, 2,451.84 tons. France, the fourth largest gold reserve in the whole world, yet they don't have gold mines. 2,437 tons. Switzerland, 1,039.94. Netherlands, 612.45 tons. Poland, 448.23 tons. Portugal, 382.66 tons, United Kingdom 310.29 tons, and then Spain 281.58 tons. Now the higher gold reserve in Africa is Algeria, yet we have only 174 tons. So now what advice are you going to give to the African leaders in order to bring them together under one roof? Right now, as I speak to you, there are 10 African countries that has decided to, communicate, to link up with Burkina Faso, and they use one common currency that will be backed with gold in order to make it a stable anchor, considering the fact, even recently, when John Mahama regained power, from that time till now, we have 100 and something days. The dollar is stable. 15 cities. Right now, it has even been decreased to 45. I mean, that is 14.10 cities. So, what advice are you going to give to our African leaders in order to come together and know that we have one thing in common? We should stop supplying our raw materials to Europe to feed their industries, instead of trading among ourselves and use what we have to back our currency, so that Africa can one day be boast of independence. But for now, the condition that we are in has nothing to do with independence. We are still under the control of the Western world. So what advice are you going to give to our African leaders to at least protect this man from Burkina Faso, not to be used like they did to Gaddafi, like they did to this man from Congo?
Yeah, so yeah, you've said a lot, and so the simple advice is to look at yourself and ask yourself why, given the data you just spelled out. If you look at African countries and the gold reserves we have, and compare it to the West, who barely has any gold reserve in the top five, the countries you mentioned, except US, none of them has gold reserve in the top five. France being fourth, zero gold reserve, gold resource. I mean, no gold mines. So good, zero gold resource, and they are boasting of 2,437. So that is all what? Maybe 50% of it is all Burkinis. So until we come together, all right, until we come together to understand that we are all facing the same problem, wherever you looked at in Africa, then we can evolve as people. The question is, do we have the same quests to move and grow our countries and make life better for our people? If what Burkina is doing is the same thing we're looking to do, then we should begin to talk. Maybe the refinery must be in Ghana because we have the highest gold. Why
That's right.
can't we in the West all refine our gold in Ghana? Everybody bringing their gold here. So we don't have to, because it's costly. So we could take economies of scale, which is to produce it over here because we have the highest gold amongst the West African countries. And in each of these countries, we can have our own gold market to boost the countries, that the cities that are producing the gold, and offer employment opportunities for our youth in those cities where golds are mined. So this is a unified purpose that we should all embrace and save this gentleman, because he has shown us what we can do when we put our heads down and begin to work. The question is, are we ready to work? Rather than signing deals and taking money and put it in our pocket, are we ready to do this? And the current democracy is not equipped, the way we structure it, to allow this to happen. Because some of these would require strengthening of our institutions, redoing some of our laws, and certain, laws and bylaws that we have in order to transform some of these institutions. Are we ready to have this conversation? If the answer is yes, then there's no other way but to embrace this guy and actually protect him and
Mm,
guide ourselves into ensuring that we can seek the same path, a path of independence. Who is going to produce what? Comparative advantage. If they're doing tomato factories right now, we just across borders. We look at how can we augment that production. Shipping from Burkina is going to be cheaper than shipping from China.
mm-hmm.
So why can't we look at those opportunities where we strategize? Because I don't want anybody to throw this mantra of, oh, he's not democratically, elected. China was doesn't have the kind of democracy we have, but they're the strongest economic nation in the world right now. So it's all about what are you doing. It's not about democracy and political parties showing, slogans and stuff like that. That's not what this is about. This is about lives. This is about people. How can we be independent, self-sufficient? And if one person has shown us the way, let's embrace it and come together and support this cause. Because when we united, then nobody can defeat us.
That's right.
And that's what Nkrumah has been saying all that time.
Mm,
Anybody's independence is meaningless unless we can come together.
that's right.
We have to come together and
Mm-hmm.
evolve. Imagine if Ghana can be bold enough to have their own structure, like we suggesting, a different style of democracy, even in the current dispensation, and present that team to Burkina to show them, hey, we have a different style. These are the guys that's going to manage our economy going forward. We want a collaboration with you guys. Do you have a similar thing? Guess what? That sets the precedence for Burkina to have a leadership that will also manage their affairs going beyond Traore. Because once they take down Traore, Burkina might go back to what it was before. And that's what we must avoid. Because the success of the Burkina is our success. It
That's
should
right.
be our
That's
interest too.
right. Mm-hmm.
So if we are thinking that way, then we must fix ourselves and present a united front, not a political front. I don't want it to be an NDC thing going on. No, let's come together, fix ourselves, because we don't want to go the Burkina way, which means we don't want any military takeover. Then fix it.
That's right.
Because the way it's going right now, the youth will rise up, whether we
Mm,
like it or not, because
that's
they've
right.
seen enough.
That's
The
right.
youth will rise up whether we like it or not. So
Mm,
we must present a unified economic management team that will guide our blueprint and develop the way forward for us to all copy and paste as we go forward,
mm,
independent of any political leadership. Once
mm.
we do that, then we have established a system that the West cannot fight, because then they're going to fight all of us.
That's right.
Because if we leave it to one person, it's only going to lead to what we see happen to Nkrumah, Sankaras, all those people,
Mm-hmm.
Gaddafi's, all of that. It's
That's
because they just them and the rest of us are not seeing what they're seeing.
mm,
But if we can change the narrative and be it an all-inclusive where everybody's interest seems to be represented with this team and a national agenda where everybody is in support of it, you can't say it's Muhammad's, it's a nation. When a nation rises up and unite on a purpose, then nobody can fight you. But when an individual is fighting a whole cross of nation, look at EU, that's a whole united front.
mm,
America, the united front. What about Africa? Who's representing Africa? Individuals.
mm, mm,
Africa has no leadership.
mm.
OAU is toothless. They can't do
That's right.
anything. So until we shape our own narrative, starting from our own nations, to
Mm,
move it up into a national agenda kind of approach, and
mm-hmm.
then preventing individuals that are not symbolizing any political party, then we
Mm,
can evolve as people. And that's the only way forward right now.
mm,
We have to have governance separate from politics.
mm.
When governance, economic governance, is separate from politics, then we present a serious united front.
Prof, thank you very much. And to those of us who are watching us live on Facebook from across the world, you can still be part of the program by calling 0240-528704 and ask our brother any question that is bothering your mind when it comes to economic and the stability of our country's economy. Prof, you made mention of agriculture. So let us limit it to Ghana, at least. When you go to the market everywhere in this country, look at the items that we buy. It's either made in France, made in America, made in England. Although our vegetation is green, everywhere is green. The land is so fertile that even if you spit, something will grow. Now, I don't know whether you have an idea of how the Western world want to depopulate Africa. And they are using the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to achieve this aim of depopulating Africa. So what advice are you going to give to the Minister of Agriculture in order to inspire the Ghanaian farmers not to depend on the genetic the genetic modified food, if on which everything that you buy is completely chemicals? The food that we eat is poison. Before you eat, most of poison in the food will enter into your system. So for these diseases that we don't have it yesterday, lung cancer, heart attack, strokes, some 40, 50 years back, we don't have all these diseases. But today, it is very prevalent in our society. Why? Because of depending on the genetically modified food, using chemicals to even poison the land. So what advice are you going to give to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture not to so much depend on the foreign food that has invaded our market?
The alternative is to grow our own food in our own way. And that is why I said until we can push back certain policies. The food was pushed back, the subsidies was withdrawn in 1960.
Mm-hmm.
So since 1960, what we've seen is a decline in agricultural produce in terms of productivity. Government doesn't support it as much as it's supposed to do. And I'm giving you an example of the reverse of that is what we see in the US, where agriculture is one of the most heavily subsidized industries you can find.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they want to grow as much of the food as possible locally. All right. So if we understand that the least we can have in a nation is to feed ourselves, because God has given us the environment to grow food everywhere in Ghana.
Mm.
So there's no reason for us to not support and change how we can feed ourselves. Domestication. We've seen that in the past when a leader, I don't remember which of the Ghanaian leaders went into domestication and giving us food more than we can ever think of. And we started even exporting it out. So that tells you the potential of the Ghanaian farmer when given the right environment to thrive. I know the current administration has some proposals about how they're going to make agriculture more attractive. So these are the policies that we must push forward. But as you can see, the challenges we have is with the funding. The funding. The funding of those projects to ensure that we can feed ourselves is what's going to be challenging for the administration, because the IMF guidelines will probably not support pushing agriculture heavy. So the Ministry of Agriculture, the challenge is, what is the alternative that we can do to grow our own food that is not genetically modified? That is causing all these diseases that we never knew of. Some of them, we're hearing them for the first time in our lives. But growing up, we don't have these issues because we were feeding ourselves locally. So until we go back to the drawing board and look at everything cohesively, which is where I want our attention to go, that these issues that we're mentioning will require a team in place that is stable, that does not have any political interest in trying to win an election or anything of that sort, and only going to focus on long-term solutions. Then we cannot solve these problems, because all we doing is putting band-aid on these problems, only for it to come off on the next leadership change. When the next party comes into power, the band-aid goes off, because all we doing is we're putting band-aids, but we never cure the injury. The wound is still here. So you don't cure a wound when you don't treat it and put band-aid on it. All you're doing is you covering it, only for it to resurface after you are done with your term. And that's the kind of approach Ghana is taking so far. So what I'm saying is we have the technocrats.
Okay.
We have the brightest of the brightest. All
Mhm.
right. Just Ghana, like anywhere in Africa, we all thriving wherever we are when we leave the shores of Ghana. So what is wrong? That means it's the conditions that we find ourselves in the home countries that's not conducive for us to emerge as people. And some of
Mm,
these are deliberate, institutionalized, conditions that we must overcome. So we have the brains, we have the technocrats, we have the scientists, we have everything. Agriculture extension services, these are the old school institutions that we've allowed to go down. We got to bring
mm,
all of that back to
that's right.
guide farmers to grow food locally with the resources. What happened to fertilizers, natural fertilizers?
Mm,
I remember doing agriculture at JSS
mm-hmm,
when I had to find my own fertilizer in,
mm,
animal manure that I put on the soil
that's right.
myself,
That's
and
right.
grew my own produce.
Mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm,
grew cabbage
mm,
in a quantity that I cannot even imagine. I had to give it out to the whole
mm,
entire community. I was distributing cabbage as my project at JSS. What happened to that kind of curriculum? I
mm,
don't think the JSS kids know how to grow anything anymore. We don't do these things. These are the
mm,
way things were just
that's right.
about 20 years ago.
Mm,
And now we've changed, grew into something else, and we just want to take a shortcut to becoming a westernized country. It's not going to
mm,
happen like that. Let's
that's
take a
right.
step
That's right. That's
back
right.
and relook at ourselves and be honest with ourselves and
Mm,
put the work in. If we're ready to put the work, trust me, like what Traore is doing, we can do
mm,
10 times better because we
that's
have
right.
more resources than they do.
That's right.
So why are we the poorest?
Mm,
And we watching here. I guarantee you, Traore is gonna have gold reserves more than we do, the way he's
exactly.
going, if we
That's
don't
right.
fix ourselves.
That's right. Prof, you
He's
made
gonna
mention of competition.
he's gonna grow better than we can ever imagine. In a
Sorry.
short time, 3 years. Look at what he's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you
So
short. And you made mention of condition. There is a saying in the scriptures of the Quran. God said, God will not change the condition of a people until they change it themselves. Sir, I still want to come back to gold. Right now, when you look at electricity, the most mysterious force in the universe is electricity. But the best conduit of electricity is gold. Right now, what do you think the Ghanaian government should do as a must to use what we have in order to stabilize our currency? Because from, like you mentioned, 70 years ago, it has never been stable. It is always going upwards. So what would you do different if you have been given the nod to manage the the currency of the country? While you know it is the best conduit of electricity. So since we have the gold, what are you going to do in order to stabilize the CD with gold?
the number one thing is to ensure that we have the ECD project as soon as possible, because that is going to lead into the depreciation of is going to hold the depreciation of the city. All right, forty
That's
percent of cities, so 40% of cities' value is going to be tied to our gold reserves. So when we have 40% of cities' value tied to gold reserves, it will hold our depreciation.
okay.
So the digital ECD is going to be number one. And
Mm-hmm.
what is going to also do is going to enable the diaspora investment, all right, into our economies, because they know that every participation of, you know, economy of Ghana is gonna be linked to the gold reserves. And if we want to take it a step further, I suggested that we have a gold backed digital currency like crypto,
Okay.
which is blockchain, and sell it across the world. I told you the person who has the number one, crypto, Bitcoin, is not even known. And
Mm,
Bitcoin is not supported by any physical asset.
mm,
So if Ghana has this gold and has reserves that we can show tangible that we have it, then we can create our own crypto, which is gonna allow international participation all across the board. And I told you the IPO in day one can even generate something like $20 billion, more than what IMF is giving us. We just have to be very creative about what we want to do. Day one launch of a digital backed cryptocurrency, Ghana Gold or coin, whatever we call it, is going to generate something in my estimation. Day one offering is going to generate about $20 billion, which will be used to finance our projects. We just have to walk away and take back a step back and look at it and see what is it that we can do. It's a digital space that everybody is operating, and we have a goal to support it. So we have resources to support it. We just have to be willing to go a step further. But number one is to make sure that the digital e-city is implemented. I know the Bank of Ghana has that on their table, and they anticipate that it will come into fruition 2025, by the end of 2025. If we can do that, that will be 40% of city's value maintained, and that will hold the depreciation. Look at what we've been able to achieve just by the change of leadership, controlling the depreciation of the city to now about $14. So that 14,000 Ghana city to a dollar now. So that means we could do so much better with a strategic mindset and
it's
disruptive mindset.
$1,400, and
Okay,
1,400 cedis equivalent to $100, not
okay.
40.
Okay, so that's where we are. But it's what is happening is we are improving in terms of the appreciation of the city just through the leadership. So, but once we have everything connected and we have the goal to show for it that this is what our economy is going to be based on, everybody will buy into it, and that stabilizes our city. At the day of independence, at the time when we got the independence in 1960, with no digital space and nothing, we were matching dollar, one city to a dollar at the time of
That's
independence.
right.
So,
That's right. That's right.
so how did it change? It's because
Yeah.
we never manage our economy.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why US is US, like I said, is simply because they have the management of their money in the hands of the technocrats and the independent organization that looked at this and ensure that their policies are strategized in a way that the dollar will maintain its value. We can do the same thing, but we've allowed our economy to be managed outside Ghana. We don't manage our economy.
Okay.
And you can have a stable currency when your economy is not in your hands.
That's right.
Who's researching to see where we're going, that will ensure that our monetary policy and our money decisions are in our own hands and not in the hands of IMF and the World Bank. Until we can get that independence back, then our money is not in our hands in terms of value.
That's right. That's right. So let me chip in this before we go into the local dialect. And for your information, those who are watching us live on Facebook from across the world here at Welkia TV, next week Monday will be on air. 12 in the afternoon to 1. So please bear in mind, next week Monday will be live from 12 to 1. From 12 a.m. to 1 p.m. So please take note. Prof, I want you to chip in this quickly so that we use the next 5 minutes to go into the local dialect to benefit our people who don't understand the English language. If we continue depending on foreign aids, would like to advise our government that even those who were the foundation fathers of the United States of America were not the greatest scholars, but they have it in mind that what destroyed the government in Europe should not befall America. And that is to allow the central bank to print money, because the Congress were representing the people. So from 1913 to 1914, the private bank went out of the Congress to the hands of individuals. So therefore, America is falling from gold and silver standard. So their currency yesterday is more devalued. The currency today is devalued in comparison to the country yesterday. So if you keep on depending on the IMF and the World Bank, what befalls them, you're going to be the burden bearer. So in short, in a nutshell, what advice would you give to our government to cut the dependency of the World Bank, the Federal Reserve, and the US Treasury, because we are still under their control?
The simple advice is to decide that we need to walk away, find an alternative. And I mentioned a lot of alternatives the last time, including looking at the South-South relationship, the BRICS, the ADB, all those other alternatives. But most importantly, processing our raw material export into value addition products, because that increases your foreign reserves, and when that increases your foreign reserves, then you're able to service the debt a lot more comfortable, because right now our debt to GDP ratio is about 85%. So that means any money we bring in cannot even finance the debt, let alone have reserves for us to be able to embark on any activities. It's as simple as that. So if you're dealing with a situation where you're not bringing enough, how can you, pay your obligations when you don't even have enough to, pay your obligation, and let alone have something left to, to fund projects. So we're living on a miracle right now. If you look at the numbers that we're facing, in terms of how much money we're bringing in. So there's a lot of ways we have, but first we have to look at that. What can we do to start processing certain raw materials like gold? All right. What can we do with cocoa? Like I said, the cocoa price, the farmers are taking home only 16% of the price. So what kind of business is that? Doesn't make any economic sense. So we have to look at all these, issues that we have, which is fundamental to how we can walk away from the IMF relationship. And internally, we have to be able to generate more revenue, formalizing the informal sector. So it's a lot of work. That's why we need a serious economic management team. I can't stress that enough, because until you have somebody's job, like right now, I'm telling a friend earlier on that if you look at IMF, the work they do behind the scenes, I'm involved with them, so I know how much work goes into their decision. And if I look at what they do relative to what we're doing, it's like we haven't even started thinking yet, because people are living by the day, doing the things sure that people can put food on the table. Who's watching for the Ghanaian? Who's thinking like that? I'm not talking about the politicians, because that's not their job. We want an independent people whose job is to just look at this situation and be able to come up with solutions for the politicians to act on 24/7. That's the kind of approach we can do in order to walk away from all these IMF and World Banks, because some of the deals are not even scrutinized. You could see that when your vice president is making a statement that he doesn't know certain like fuel is gonna get increment and electricity. All that means some people are not looking at these contracts. So who's gonna be looking at our contracts?
It's unfortunate we've overgone our time. We have to speak the Hausa dialect to benefit our people as always. But there is somebody from Accra whose name is Shamir. He's a Rastaman, just the direct opposite of the post office in Accra. He's a regular listener to our program. Only that he doesn't have time to send in his question. But this time around, he said I should ask you
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to say about our rich fabrics like the kente? Because the African American Society in America has
Mm-hmm.
recognized that their roots is in Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Benin, and in Ghana we have that rich fabrics that is kente. So what are you going to do what are you going to say to our people in order to depend on our fabrics to add more value to our fabric and our culture so that we can also gain through what we produce, because the kente weavers are getting their market from their African American society in Accra, in Africa. So what are you going to advise our people to produce and then export more kente across the world in order to get foreign exchange like the dollar?
Yeah, I think it was one of the solutions I provided when I talk about options, culture, and tourism,
That's right.
especially for our diasporan community outside of Ghana. So, where I mentioned that I expect the embassies to do a lot more, rather than
Mm-hmm.
just being an embassy that just sits there and only issue visas, they should be involved with the diasporan communities outside Ghana.
Mm.
All right. We have a cultural exhibition and then show them the business opportunities, not only to sell kente, but even going beyond kente and doing business with Ghana. These are all foreign direct investment that's on the table that we living on the table we haven't taken advantage of simply because we're not strategic in terms of how we're going to run our embassies. If we run our embassies as a business creation tool, then we can bring all these opportunities to Ghana. A friend
Mm.
reached out to me. He has a project in Liberia. And each time he tried to engage the diaspora, and they keep mentioning Ghana. Why doesn't he have anything for Ghana? They want to go to Ghana. They want to go to Ghana.
Mm.
So we put up, a program together, and he wants me to help him, see how we can make the transition into visiting Ghana and taking advantage of all these cultural and tourism opportunities that this gentleman is talking about. So
Brilliant.
when I look at that, then I ask myself, what is our strategy for the diasporan communities? I know they have offices of diasporan relations. I heard something like that in the news that this administration is looking at. But it has to be a real one where we are engaging the diasporan communities, the billionaires, the millionaires here.
Mm.
How can we attract them with the system and institutions and structures we have for them to invest in Ghana? Is what we must.
Brother Abbas, may Allah bless you abundantly. Very important submission, very intelligent submission. And our brother has given us some additional few minutes. But I will propose, inshallah, next week, we propose for, instead of homecoming, we propose for Emancipation Day. We create something like that in order to boost our fabrics, in order to boost our foreign allies, the African American Society in America, Britain, and other countries, to come down to Ghana to celebrate Emancipation Day. That will be discussed next week if God permits. But we want to take some few minutes given to us by our technician, Yusuf, to talk to our people living in the Zongos who are not familiar with the English dialects, to also benefit a little bit from what we are doing here, what we've discussed so far today as usual. Jama'a mu musulmai maza da mata da 'yan Ghana gaba ɗaya, mu ne muku sallama ta musulunci, assalamu alaikum. Mun tattauna ne akan tattalin arzikin ƙasar mu na Ghana, mun tattauna ababa masu yawan gaske, amma ba duka kenan ba. Lokacin da za mu samu mu yi bayani shine wanda muka yi nan na awa ɗaya. Da tare da ɗan uwanmu Abbass Mohammed, wanda yake professor ne a nan ƙasar America, wanda ya taho ya muna bayanin ababen da ya kamata mu yi saboda mu more da incin da muka ce mun samu 1957 zuwa 60, wanda har yanzu ba ma amfani da abin da Allah ya bamu na ma'adinai kamar su zinariya da sauransu, wanda muke dogaro kuma da abincin da ake turo mana da ƙasashen waje. Baya ga mu wanda Allah ya bamu da muke shukawa mu samu amfani na jiki, yanzu mu yi banza da namu muna dogaro ga na waje shi kuma ke samu na cututtuka shi yasa yayi dogon bayani shi yasa zai wani abin da ake ce mai summary zai a takaice zai mana bayani na dan mintuna 4 zuwa 5 a cikin Hausa saboda iyayenmu da ke zanne a unguwanninmu na zango su ma su fahimci ga abin da aka tattauna a wannan gida mai albarka Walkiya TV karkashin jagorancin dan uwanmu Sheikh Mohammed Firdaus da nan kasar America shi yasa ba tare da bata lokaci ba za mu gayyaci dan uwanmu Abbass Mohammed Professor ya dan muna bayani a takaice na minti 5 me aka tattauna a wannan gidan yau. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah Mohammed.
Wa alaikum assalam, barkanmu da yau, barkanmu da warhaka. Har yanzu muna yi da Walkiya TV godiya da daman da suka bamu har muke samun dama mu tattauna wannan lamari na ci gaban kasan da tattalin arzikinsa. So har yanzu dai mun tattaba kan cewa to in abin nan IMF din masu taimaka mana wajen kuladdadi da ke kawo dama mu yi ababen da muke son mu yi, in dai a gaske ba su taimaka ba to menene mafita? Shine muka duba waɗansu hanyoyi. Na farko cewa mu gyara zamanmu, mu gane cewa in dai muna neman ci gaban gaske to ya kamata mu yi da juna gaskiya da cewa muna neman wani tsari daban da zai sa muna da waɗansu da aikinsu ne su duba yau da kullum me ya kamata mu yi mu kamo kanmu mafita, kamar yadda za mu iya mu ci amfanin arzikin da Allah ya bamu, ya muna baiwa na cikin ƙasa. Na farko mu ma mu ciyar da kanmu abinci, shine abin da Sheikh ya faɗi wanda har yanzu muna fama. Da can muna iya sai abin nan ciyar da kanmu, amma yanzu kun lura komi ana kawowa ne daga waje, to shi ya kawo muna cuta dewa. To wayannan shine na farko abin da ya kamata mu gano. Sannan na biyu kuma mun tattauna kan cewa to wayannan abin nan amfanin da Allah ya bamu na abin nan dubbin arziki na su abin nan gold da sauransu, ya za mu yi mu sake tsarin. Shine muka ce to mu doki ma karatu ba nisa ba, Burkina nan kusa gashi sun fara yin wani abu daban da shugabansu Ibrahim Traore ya kawo wani tsari da yau suke kai da yake kawo da kowa amfani, da duniya duka kowa ya karkata yana duba. To mu ma za mu iya cin amfanin irin wa'annan dama, amma mun yi namu daban, ba dole she wani soja ya zo ya sa mu gaba ba. Za mu iya gyara wa'insu ababa in dai mun gano kamar cewa abin nan ba abin politics ba ne. Tafiyar da tattalin arzikin gari ya kamata ya wuce politics, ya wuce NPP, ya wuce NDC, ya kawo haɗin kai yanda za mu iya mu samu wa'ansu da suka sa abin da suke ciki su gyara mana zama, saboda mu kiyaye kanmu da abin da ya faru kamar Burkina. Don damuwan shi ne in shi ya wuce to me zai zo baya. To amma kaga muna da tsari na tutur da za mu sa da kanmu, to kowane ne zai zo ya wuce muna tsaye inda muke tsayin daga. So abin da ka tattauna kenan insha Allah.
Masha Allah, mun gode kwarai ɗan uwanmu Abbass Mohammed, Allah ubangiji ya saka ma da alkhairi. Godiya muke na kwarai muna jinjina muka kuma da wannan karantarwa da ka muna dai fatan su wanda ke 'yan siyasa za su ji ka da kunnin basira kuma su amfani da ababen da aka faɗa masu nauyin gaske, masu tsada. Ubangijin Allah muke roko, ubangijin Allah ya sa su ji kuma su yi aiki da shi. Muna gode da Allah kuma da ya bamu wannan daman mu zo mu dan tattauna daidai abin da Allah ya ilmitar da mu ma muka ba ɗan uwanmu mu ma namu jihadi da muke kenan. Don duk wanda Allah mai baiwa da ilimi to akwai nauyi kuma da aka dora mai. Professor ya sauke nauyin shi, ya faɗa mana abin da ya sani, ya rage wajen mu ji ko ka mu ji wannan hannun ubangiji yake, amma kada wani ya ce ba faɗi mai ba. Kuma muna fatan insha Allah nan da sati mai zuwa na ranar Litini maimakon ƙarfe 5 na yamma za mu yi wannan gabatarwar ne daga 12 na rana zuwa karfe 1. Shi yasa jama'a Allah ya kai mu wannan lokacin sati mai zuwa ranar Litini za mu yi wannan program din na dandalin tattalin arziki, shi ake ce mai economic forum, daga 12 na rana zuwa karfe 1. Dan uwanmu professor zai zo ya dan karantar da mu gwargwadon abin da Allah ya sauke mai. Mun gode muku kwarai da kuka samu lokaci kuka saurare mu. Allah ya saka muku da alkhairi. Kuma sabon sati muna bukatan ku yi joni da mu, ku yi tambayoyi da kuke da shi, ko kuma ku aiko mana sakonni a nan kan waya, insha Allah dan uwanmu zai karanta kuma ya baku ansa. Mu ne muku gaisuwa inda muka fara ta addinin musulunci. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.